Surprise, QuakeToys! Good job. We are going to read Zootopia, the Stinky Cheese Caper, and other cases from the ZPD, which is the Zootopia Police Department files. So it's got a picture of Nick and Judy, and they're very cartoonized. Now there are some pictures in here, but mostly it's just a chapter book. There's 4 chapters or stories that all link together. I'm sorry, our book arrived damaged like that. And it says cases to solve 4. Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde are ready for action again. Whether it's a case of missing cheese or trouble on Outback Island, Judy and Nick go above and beyond to solve a crime and sometimes find a lot more than they bargained for. Join them as they spring into action on 4 new cases. So this is super cute. Let's see. There's a picture of them. Oh my, that looks like extremely stinky cheese. And look at that. Disney Zootopia, the Stinky Cheese Caper, and other cases from the ZPD files. So the first story is the Stinky Cheese Caper. If you have the book, you can read along. If not, this could be a good check to see if you want to pick up the book so you can read along. The city of Zootopia was usually very safe. Animals of all different shapes and sizes lived there in harmony. Occasionally a problem would pop up, like the savage animal attacks from a few months earlier, but Judy Hopps and her partner Nick Wilde would catch the bad guys. As the first bunny and fox cops on the Zootopia police force, they liked proving that in Zootopia, anyone could be anything. One afternoon, Judy and Nick were on traffic duty. A teen wolf named Wolfric had just been in a fender bender, which is a minor car accident. He had a brand new license from the Department of Mammal Vehicles, and he seemed to have forgotten some rules. "You really shouldn't operate a motor vehicle with your head out the window, Wolfric," Judy told him. "I can't help it," Wolfric said. "Ever since Wild Times opened that new ride where the wind blows in your face, I just want to feel that all the time." Judy shook her head. "This is the third time this month, someone has blamed the wind tunnel for a car crash. Nick, we have to go by Wild Times and make sure the amusement park has a warning on that ride." The fox nodded. Just then, Judy's radio squawked. Nick took over Wolfric's paperwork so Judy could talk to Clawhauser. He was the cheetah who worked the front desk at the ZPD. "I'm here, Clawhauser. Got another speeder for me to catch?" Even though Judy and Nick had solved one of ZPD's biggest cases, Chief Bogo kept them working traffic. "Nope. There's been a robbery at the Shea Cheese Warehouse just outside Little Rodentia." As you can see, it's Shea Cheese or Shea Shays. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Judy's ears twitched, which always happened when she was excited. "You can tell the chief we're on it." Clawhauser paused. "Hopps, some cops are saying you two got the case because no one else wants it. I hear it's he lowered his voice, "stinky cheese robbery." "It's all right, Clawhauser. Nick and I can handle it." They knew that police work sometimes came with smelly places. After finishing with Wolfric, Judy told Nick about the robbery. Shea Cheese catered mostly to the residents of Little Rodentia, an area of the city where rodents such as mice, shrews, and hamsters lived. The restaurant also had a huge warehouse. It held slabs of cheese that were shipped all over Zootopia. Once she filled them in, Judy and Nick drove toward Little Rodentia. Near the edge of the bay, they took a detour around a construction site. "What's going on there?" Judy asked, pointing to the cement trucks. New bridge over by the bay," Nick said. "The press is calling it the bridge to everywhere. Outbackers aren't too happy." He pointed to a small group of kangaroos and wallabies holding picket signs. "They're calling it the bridge to everywhere except Outback Island." Even though Nick looked like he didn't care, Judy knew that her sharp-witted friend paid attention to every detail. Judy parked the squad car outside the warehouse and went inside. Nick wasn't behind her. "Come on," she told her partner. He was leaning against the car, looking slightly green. "Don't you smell that?" Nick asked, his nose wrinkling. She sniffed. "It's just cheese. Not pleasant, but not stinky enough to stop me from doing my job." She pulled his arm and he followed her, covering his nose. The manager of the warehouse was a rat named Vince. He met them at the door and led them to a back room. That's very funny. With a large, empty table. The smell was so strong now, even Judy had to cover her nose. "The thieves came in through the back," Vince said. His whiskers fluttered nervously. He pointed to an emergency exit door that was propped open. Nick hurried outside for some fresh air and to search for clues. Judy put some cheese crumbles in an evidence bag. Vince frowned but didn't say a word. "Do you have any surveillance cameras?" Judy asked. Vince shook his head as his whiskers continued to move. "Disabled. Whoever did this knew what they were doing." Outside, Nick snapped photos of paw prints in the mud. He took one last breath of fresh air, then returned to the warehouse. "Got any idea why someone would want to steal this cheese?" Vince nodded. "It's one of our top sellers. Losing it will hurt our profits this quarter. Even those scraps," he pointed to Judy's bag, "are worth more than my entire collection of hats." "Is that why you're so nervous?" Judy asked. He nodded. "The boss is going to have my tail for this."
Judy had an entire collection of hats.
The rat does. "We'll be in touch," Judy said, back in the squad car. Judy started the engine and turned to Nick. "Any ideas?" In the passenger seat, Nick plugged his phone into a laptop and uploaded the pictures of the paw prints. If the cheese really was really that expensive, that's a motive. "Do you know what kind of prints these are?" He turned the computer toward his partner. Judy squinted. "Too big for a rodent. Raccoon? Weasel?" "Weasel?" They knew a thieving weasel. "Duke Weaselton!" they chorused, even if Duke Weaselton wasn't behind this theft. They knew the crime community better than anyone, even Nick, who used to be legally adjacent before he joined forces with Judy. "Know where we can find him?" Judy asked. "Word on the street is he's found a way to win some games at Wild Times." "Let's check there," Nick said. Judy drove while Nick sent his photos to the National Paw Print Database. As usual, there would be a 2-hour wait for the computer to identify the prints. Wild Times was an amusement park that let the citizens of Zootopia explore their wild sides. Its newest ride, the Wind Tunnel, encouraged animals to stick their heads out of vehicle windows while driving. As Judy and Nick entered the sprawling park, they blinked under the bright lights. Flashing signs advertised new games. Judy frowned as they passed the wind tunnel. A dingo was in the back of the line. He slunk away when he saw her. "Good," Judy thought. "One less accident for me to worry about." Nick had spotted Duke Weaselton and quickly cornered him. "This better be important, Wild," Weaselton said. "There's been a robbery at Shea Cheese Warehouse," Judy said. "Have you heard anything?" Weaselton froze, fear flashing over his face. Nick held him against a nearby pillar. Weaselton was good at weaseling out of being questioned by the police. "Aha!" Judy exclaimed. "So you do know something." "Don't tell Mr. Big," Weaselton replied, looking for an escape. "He doesn't like me near Shea Cheese." "But I wasn't. I was at a different warehouse in the area last night. I was meeting a contact about some giraffe scarves. Nothing to do with cheese." A speeding sports car almost ran me over. It smelled bad, too. Could be our guide, Judy said to Nick. Then what? She asked Weaselton. He shrugged. Nothing. I jumped out of the way, yelled at the driver, and watched the sports cars leave town on the Meadowlands Highway. Nick and Judy let Weaselton go and headed back to their car. Nick scrolled through police reports looking for anything about bad smells. Bingo, he said. The jail submitted a report. Turns out they had to evacuate the prisoners in solitary due to some bad smell on the west side. Good lead, Nick, said Judy. Maybe it wasn't the best lead, but it was the only one they had. They drove down the Meadowlands Highway to talk to the warden. Finally, said the warden. He was a jaguar with very good posture. I've been waiting to talk to some detectives since I filed that report. He led Judy and Nick through the prison, past a bunch of empty cells. Someone threw a huge piece of cheese over the wall. We had to evacuate this cell block. Solitary, right? How many prisoners were in there? Nick asked. Yeah, just one. Only this platypus, who's been causing problems. Everyone's been mistaking him for a beaver, though. That gets him angry, and he whacks the other prisoners with his tail. Looks like a beaver tail, by the way. Judy frowned. Beaver tails are thinner and less furry. Really, the animals are very different. Close enough, said the warden. Judy held back another comment. She wanted to tell him that knowing the difference between species was important, but they were here to solve a case. Any witnesses? She asked instead. The warden nodded. Me, actually. I was working in the tower last night. It was late, past midnight. A sports car drove up to the wall. Then someone got out and tossed the cheese over. Maybe he thought we don't feed our prisoners well enough. Did you get a good look at him? Asked Nick. A small wolf? Coyote? He waved his hand at Nick. Maybe even a fox. It was dark, and canines looked similar. Nick smirked. Everyone thinks foxes are sly, but some of us are just trying to help our community. Thanks for your help, Judy said to the warden. As she and Nick hurried back to the car, she exclaimed, It makes no sense, Nick! But Nick wasn't listening. The National Paw Print Database had finally given them a match. Turns out that paw print at Shea Cheese was from a dingo. That's odd. They are rarely off Outback Island. I saw one at Wild Times earlier, Judy said, putting the car into gear. Maybe he'll know something. Nick's fur bristled. Or maybe he's our guy. Judy thought that was a stretch, but she didn't believe in coincidences. Let's go find him, she said. The dingo was back in line at the wind tunnel when Judy and Nick returned to Wild Times. That's a dingo, all right, Nick said when Judy pointed him out. Excuse me, Judy called to the dingo. We'd like to. The dingo took one look at the officers approaching him and sprinted out the back door. Innocent dingoes don't run, Nick shouted. He tried to follow, but the dingo hopped into a fancy sports car and roared away. That's some car, Nick said as he and Judy ran for their squad car. We'll catch him, Judy said. He's been in the wind tunnel all day. I have a feeling he might have an accident soon. Sure enough, the dingo only made it a block before his head popped out the window. A moment later, the car crashed. Judy and Nick squealed to a stop. The dingo pushed his door open and ran straight into the officers. Been stealing Stinky cheese lately? Nick asked. He took a sniff, and immediately his eyes started to water. Never mind. I already know the answer. Judy, check the car. Judy spotted cheese crumbles in the back seat. Way to sniff out our guy, Nick. The dingo frowned. You don't have to make such a stink about it. Judy and Nick took the dingo to the station for questioning. He confessed to the theft. He'd wanted a fancy cheese for a dinner party, so he stole some. But he hadn't been able to stand the smell and threw it out the window. Nick and Judy didn't blame him. Good job, Judy said to her partner. Nick gave her a high five. Now, let's get rid of this smell. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to QuakeToys. We're going to come right back and do story number 2. All the stories tie in together. So we'll be right back with more of the Stinky Cheese Caper, Part 2. Thanks for watching QuakeToys. Do you want to say bye?
Thank you for watching. It's my wing. Bye.
Bye, guys.